Today on Comicstorian, it's time to find out what Thor 2099 looks like. This is the Comicstorian channel where I take some of your favorite trade paperbacks in single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. We break it down into a synopsis where I basically tell you what's going on in the comic book, but I cut out a lot of the fluff and extra context and extra artwork. This allows you to go to your local comic book store or digital retailer and buy it yourself to add it to your collection. Or you can get the next issues that come after this and just get ahead of us in the story. All alterations of the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Today we're finally getting back to the mainline Spider-Man 2099 storyline to set up another crossover. Today's video is sponsored by Shortboxed, the app making it easier to buy and sell graded comics online. Are you a comic book collector and looking to start your first collection? Then Shortboxed might be the app for you. Shortboxed is available to download for free on both iOS and Android, and makes shopping for graded comics easier than ever. With browsing features and a clean and clear interface, you can easily find the comic that you're looking for. It's grade in a description before being able to buy for a set price or make your own offer. All purchased comics will be mailed to your house safe and sound, making it easier than ever to start a collection. On top of that, we've partnered with Shortboxed to do a giveaway for a copy of Amazing Spider-Man 365 graded at 9.0 by the CGC. This is the first appearance of Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099, and it can be yours for free. Simply head over to shortbox.com/comicstorian to enter for a chance to win this awesome comic and get a promo code for $15 off of your first Shortboxed order. Don't wait. Start your collection today with Shortboxed and go to shortboxed.com/comicstorian. So in order to understand where we are right now, Miguel O'Hara is Spider-Man. His AI companion Lila has been hacked and altered in some way. Dana and his brother Gabe are getting kind of curious as to what is going on, but they don't know his secret, and there's many Thorites out there who are praising the return of their god, Thor, one day. That's all you need to know to get into today's episode of Spider-Man 2099. And if you want to know how we got here, the link to the full playlist will be down below. Let's get into this. Jordan Boone sits in his apartment, recording an email for Henry, informing him that since his Unreality project is a bust, that Alchemex isn't his biggest fan. He tells him that he tried to get into the Valhalla project, but Tyler Stone turned him down. Activating a hollow projection of the floating city, he stares at it with amazement. I dug deeper. I found out everything. I don't think they know that I'm onto them, he says in the recording, informing Henry that he's about to do something outrageous and that if Henry doesn't hear him, everything went bad. But as he ends the email, a voice calls to him from the office doorway. Jordan Boone, the voice says. He tries to get away, but the big man crosses the room, knocking him out and dragging him out of the apartment. Meanwhile, Spider-Man finds himself in the downtown area fighting off members of the Fenris gang. We had this discussion, and I hate repeating myself, Spider-Man tells them as he flips out of the way of their attacks, punching them in the face, slashing with his talons. It's a waste of time and energy and lives, he says as he grabs one, throwing it away. The civilians shout encouragement from their apartment windows, glad that someone is standing up for them against the terrorizing street gang, but Spider-Man turns as the Fenris shout for their warrior. Spider-Man! You have tormented my people, and now you face their leader. Now you face Blood Sword, the big warrior shouts. Spider-Man stares him down, waiting for his attack. The gang member rushes forward, lifting his massive sword, bringing it down hard. But Spider-Man catches it easily, cutting through it with his talons, destroying it. It's not the size of the sword, it's how you use it, he tells the man simply. He moves fast, knocking him out with one blow, and then he looks around at the gathered gang members as he stands over their leader. Apparently, you guys didn't get the message that I delivered to the church. Fenris's days of terrorizing ends today. The people of downtown are entitled to peace. The gang begins to scatter, and a few other people rush forward, praising Spider-Man as the harbinger of Thor, asking for his blessings, asking him to heal their children, and Spider-Man pulls himself away, finally flipping back up into the sky. I'll ask Thor, he calls down to them, and as he reaches topside, he once again feels dirty for going back to his lush upper city. Meanwhile, at Casey's apartment, she tells the rest of her gang that they need to get out and help Spider-Man. But Gabriel finally gets irritated with his girlfriend always talking about Spider-Man storming out of the apartment. Meanwhile, at Miguel's apartment, Dana and Tyler Stone sit and wait for Miguel to get back, with Dana once again asking Lila if she knows when Miguel will return. No, Dana, Lila simply tells her. Tyler begins to tell Dana that he has grown fond of her since they've begun working together. He tells her that Miguel might not be coming back, but that something awful might have happened. At that exact moment, the door slides open and Miguel walks inside, finally glad to see his girlfriend again. They hug, with Dana telling Miguel that everything is fine since the Thanatos attack. I was getting worried. I kept calling your apartment, she tells him. Miguel looks in shock at Lila, asking why she didn't say anything. Perhaps she is lying, Miguel. Lila tells him with a smile, and she admits that it is possible that something is wrong with her program, and she promises to run a full diagnosis. Stone interrupts them, informing them that Miguel's timing couldn't have been better since they need to leave for their trip to the floating city. Oh, Miguel, won't it be nice to have some time to ourselves? Dana tells him with a smile, and Tyler puts his arms around them both, steering them towards the door. Better hurry. Don't want to miss that startup ceremony. So a short time later, the pair of them are staring out the windows of their sky car at the grand city before them. Miss Gibbons is their tour guide, informing them that they have several Thorites on staff who have taken to naming the city Valhalla. Miguel nods, explaining that he knows a thing or two about Norse mythology. Mr. O'Hara, you're very knowledgeable. Are you a Thorite? No, just an object of their worship, he tells her offhandedly. They finally land with Miss Gibbons leading them through the city, telling them all about the specs, and everyone seems to be standing around waiting, with Gibbons informing them that everyone is waiting for the city to be activated. After the startup, I'll bring you to the hydroponics labs, she says, but Miguel starts moving, staring up into the city as he sees a caped figure standing far above them. The countdown is ended, and the startup of Valhalla has begun. Suddenly, everything begins to rumble and explosions begin to go off within the city. Dana, hang on, Miguel shouts as they both fall to their feet. Miguel struggles up, grabbing a hold of Dana as he realizes that the city of Valhalla has begun to move. We've got to get to the sky car, she shouts to him, and everyone begins to panic, scrambling for cover. But everyone stops as a booming voice reaches them. Mortals, do not be afraid. This is your time to rejoice. This is the time the prophecies have spoken. The blonde man calls, floating down towards them. Landing, he introduces himself as the noble Thor, calling his companion Heimdall. He orders Heimdall to guard the gate, holding his mighty hammer, proclaiming that he will bring this world into the golden age that it deserves. And woe to those who are the false bringers of the word of Thor, for they are the first to die! Meanwhile, the town of Randall is known for wanting to stay out of the way of the Corpos. The residents there want nothing to do with Alchemex, but that day, a vast shadow overtook them. The residents of Randall looked up at the floating city of Valhalla as it drew closer. On board the floating city, Thor holds up his mighty hammer, looking at the shocked faces that are gathered around him. This is the place of Esir. This is the place that has agreed to us. A select few will remain to act as sentinels, for we must remain vigilant lest Ragnarok take us unaware. And he looks around, telling the rest that they must leave the city, but his eyes stop as they fall on Dana, who's holding tight to Miguel. Well, well, a comely wench if I've ever seen one, he says with a smile, reaching for her, asking whether she would like to stay and see the sport of gods, but Miguel pulls Dana away. We're not leaving. We built this place, not you. Whoever you claim to be, he snaps at him. But Thor becomes angry, grabbing a hold of Miguel's shirt, warning him. A storm is coming towards you, mortal. Thou hast ceased to amuse me, Thor warns as he takes a swing at Miguel, but Miguel merely clutches the blow. Oh, hast I? He questions, and Thor smiles, realizing that Miguel is more than he seems. Anger flashes over Thor's face as he lifts Miguel up, heaving him through the air, sending him flying. You monster, you killed him! Dana screams as she beats her fist against the mighty Thor. But he stops her fist, informing her, I am not your Christian god, but a god to be worshipped by men. For those who worship that which is truly great, and we do not appreciate ungrateful females. He informs her as he pushes her away, finally raising his hammer again, turning and bellowing for those who have gathered to leave his city. Meanwhile, Miguel is flying through the air, finally slamming into a window and shattering it. He manages to shoot out his webbing, swinging back, sticking to the outside of Valhalla. He knows that if he goes back as Miguel, he'll just be beaten by Thor again. But Spider-Man can actually do something. He looks down, realizing that the city is floating quickly towards New York as well. Shock! I wonder if that's a coincidence or divine guidance, he whispers as he begins to change. Meanwhile, at the Wellvale home, deep shadows fill the parking lot as one of the doctors begins to get into his car. From the darkness, Miguel's mother steps out, slamming his head with a brick, apologizing softly as she gets in the car and drives off. Meanwhile, Dana is crying in the sky car that she has gotten into, believing that Miguel is dead. One of the passengers is angry with her, believing that it is her fault that they couldn't stay with the gods. He's not a god, you moron! How could he be? She snaps at him. Tears still in her eyes for Miguel, Thor and Heimdall are watching the cars leaving. But they look up as Spider-Man swings towards them. All right, gods, where's the woman? He demands. Thor looks up, recognizing this Spider-Man as the one that the masses believe to be his harbinger. You seek the woman? She is gone, departed with the rest of the bleating masses. He sneers. Gone? I'm going too then. Spider-Man tells him as he begins to turn away, but anger flashes on Thor's face again as he readies his hammer. I dare say you will be going to help, a burnt offering to Hela. He shouts, ordering Heimdall to bring the web crawler down. Heimdall throws his sword, the blade cutting through the webbing. It begins to dive and twist all around Spider-Man as he drops to the ground, rolling and flipping out of the way of the blade. Finally managing to grab the handle, he holds the weapon aloft. I dare say, he dares lay a hand on the sacred Hoofund. Heimdall explains, but Thor orders his companion to release his mental hold on the weapon, wishing to test Spider-Man in combat. The two lock weapons, and Spider-Man begins to do his best to counter Thor's hammer. Thor laughs as he disarms the wall crawler, though. Spider-Man then shoots out a web, snagging the sword, pulling it back, cutting Thor across the face. You dare! The god snarls, lightning beginning to strike and crack all around him. You dare draw the blood of an immortal, he bellows, and Spider-Man flips out of the way, but Thor sails forward, slamming into him, throwing him into several walls. Realize this, I am Thor, and you are merely the one who has aggrandized himself with our name and power. Spider-Man tries to hit him again and again, but the blows appear to be doing nothing. So Thor reaches out, grabbing him by the throat. Pathetic. He snaps, but Spider-Man twists, kicking him in the face. Thor becomes angry again, throwing Spider-Man away, whirling his hammer, throwing it at him. The weapon slams into Spider-Man's chest and begins to just carry him away. Farewell, O Harbinger of Thor, O hero of the masses, he shouts. Heimdall steps up to his lord, asking where he sent the wall crawler. Old haunts, a place of public humiliation, so that this Harbinger nonsense can be ended once and for all. The hammer carries Spider-Man away, with the wall crawler trying desperately to stop it, but he can't seem to lift the weapon off of his own chest. He finally manages to slide out from beneath its path, beginning to tumble through the air, falling towards downtown. But he manages to form a web parachute, slowing his descent until he slams into the ground. That could have been worse. He grunts as he struggles to his feet, looking up just in time to see the hammer sailing towards him again. Oh, shock. He mumbles just before the hammer slams into the building. Meanwhile, Gabriel has arrived at Miguel's apartment, demanding Lila tell him where Miguel is. She informs him that she doesn't know where his brother is, and that you should have a crawler, because they're quite good, she tells him. But Gabriel refuses, planning to wait for his brother so that they can have words. She shrugs, asking once again if he would like a crawler. Gabriel gets angry and begins to yell at her, and then anger flashes across Lila's face. Listen, you ingrate! Miguel's not here, which means you're a guest in my sufferance. And if you give me any grief, I'll have the security bots come in here and rip out your intestines and shove them down your throat. Now, do you want a shocking crawler or not? Gabe is so surprised that he falls to the ground. Okay. Lila's attitude immediately changes again as she smiles at him and she walks across the apartment. All right, Gabriel, coming right up. And maybe some hot chocolate? She says sweetly. Meanwhile, back with Spider-Man, Miguel groans as he pulls himself out of the rubble of the fallen building. Now he's annoyed, and he promises to kick Thor's butt when he can move in a couple of weeks. That's when he looks up and a voice calls down to him. All right, buddy, don't move. Punisher orders, aiming his blaster at the wall crawler. Don't worry, I promise, Spider-Man tells him. And that concludes the beginning of a giant crossover in the world of 2099. Now, it's weird because they realized Spider-Man 2099 was selling well, so they put him in the 2099 Unlimited stuff, and now we're about to go into a crossover that involves Punisher, the X-Men, and Doom, and they all have to deal with the arrival of the Thor. I hope you guys are excited. Make sure you subscribe. Every Wednesday, we'll be bringing you another chapter of the 2099 crossover event that happened at this point, where they all fought against Thor. So, like I said, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time right here.